Good day, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. Today we will talk about test mode. David and I have shown this before, but this time we will totally focus on what it can do and how it works. Test mode is a new feature in pdfToolbox 10. It allows users to test profiles and test fixups and checks and process plans while you're building them and while you're editing them. The most positive thing about this, the most fun thing, is that you don't have to save what you're doing, exit the editor, open a file, execute your check profile process plan on that file to see if it works. This saves a lot of time because you can actually immediately see the result of your check and fix up. And the second nice thing is that you do not ruin the file you're working with. Because if you have to open a file, execute your fixup, then you're editing the file. So you keep creating more and more files on which you have executed your fixup or your profile or process plan. And you're just making a big mess. With test mode, you don't have to do that anymore. You can immediately see if your profile works, if your check hits, if your fixup does exactly what you want it to do. For example, this is a start file. This is the one I'm going to use in a demonstration in a minute as well. This is what a test window looks like. You can see on the left at the top, I have my test mode PDF. And on the right, I have the profile that I'm using, the add crop marks profile. You can see the fixup works, and you can see in the preview on the left the result. So this is the original file without crop marks. You can see the result here with crop marks. And then you know your output is going to be correct with crop marks. Of course, that's an easy way to show it with pre-made pictures. Let's go into the program and I'll show you over there. Okay, so we have pdfToolbox 10 open, and I have my test file opened already as well. So the test mode is available in checks, fixups, profiles, and process plans. You will find it in each of those. I have a check here. Let's start with checks. When you edit the check and you have the editor open, so this is the editor, you can see the content of my check is device RGB or uses ICC-based RGB, and this is an RGB in file check. Now on the bottom right here, you will have this new button in pdfToolbox 10 that says test. Clicking this will open the test mode. This is the test mode window. You can see I have a hit. Now, that's basically what it does. So you know there is RGB in this file, and my check works. You have one match. If I open this up, I can see where this hit is. I'll show you here in the object editor. Object inspector, I mean. So if I go over here, this image is, one of these images is an RGB image. So this image on the top right is an RGB image, while this one is a CMYK image, so that one doesn't hit, and all the rest in this file is also CMYK. But we have an RGB image in this file, over here, device RGB, this penguin, and my check picks that up. So I could have used test mode to find out, oh, does my check actually work? Now let's say I change something. So I do not want to have device RGB included. I'll say it's not true. I'll just remove it. And I can test this. And now I see, oh, no problems. So there's no RGB in this file, right? Because I have my check uses ICC-based RGB and I have no hits. There's no problem, right? No, because I know there is an RGB image in this file. My check just didn't pick it up. So now I can change my check, have the RGB, device RGB added, test it again, and I know, oh, there is a hit. So that's what it's useful for. You don't have to, oh, there is actually a red line around this, so the show does work. It's just not very visible in the magenta. So the test mode is very useful because I don't have to save my check. I don't have to open a new file and test it. I can do it immediately. Now I have one in the Fixups as well. So in Fixups, this is a fixup add marks. It's to add crop marks. I have my settings here. for my crop marks, and I can do the test mode. Immediately I see the result. I have crop marks around my page. I'm using this profile, add crop marks. You can see it working. So you see it starts from nothing and then it gets the crop marks in the pages enlarged. So you immediately know, this fix-up works. That's what the test mode is for. It's really quick. Now, let's go a little bit further. What if I want to do this with something else? Let's say I have this page. Let's close this. This page has a pretty small trim box. Now, what I would like to do is I would like to crop the page to the trim box. This is a process plan. This process plan contains 4 steps, 4 fix-ups. The first will create an outline of the trim box. The second will clip anything outside of that outline. Then the third one will crop based on visible content, because everything outside of the outline will not have any content. It will clip towards there. And then the fourth one will remove that outline that I placed earlier. Now let's say I test this. You can see how it works. Oh, it clips to the trim box. Now, if I want to, this is also a nice feature. If I want to do this on something else, let's say I want to do it on the test mode here, it's not going to do much because it was already clipped to the trim box. But you can see I can easily change which file I'm working with and which file I test my profile on. And this can be useful in a variety of cases as well. So another neat feature, I can log the profile execution. So if you have multiple fix-ups in a profile, which is usually the case unless you're looking for something very specific, or you have a process plan that goes into in steps, I can say test. And now I logged the profile execution, and I get this temporary folder made on your drive that has your fixed document, your original document, and all the documents made along the way. So in this first step, you will see this one has an outline in magenta on the trim box. Then the second step will have removed anything visible outside of the trim box. There wasn't anything visible there, but okay. Then this one clips towards the first visible thing, being the magenta line. And the last one removes the magenta line. And you can see all the PDFs being created for each of these steps. So you can easily tell where something goes wrong if something isn't working. So the logging is very nice as well. You also get this process log in text that tells you what happened and how it happened and if it was successful or not. This can also help with debugging. And you still get your original file. So this log profile execution is very interesting if you have multiple steps in your document and if you want to know if one of those steps might have an error or if everything worked exactly as expected. You get all these temporary files. Now, if I press OK and I close the test profile, you will see that Finder window closes, but also the contents, the temporary files, have now been deleted. So they are not kept on your system. They will not take up space in the long run. You don't have to delete those manually. If you want to keep any of those, you can obviously copy it out while you're working. Now I have another one here, create landscape proof. This is also a situation where test mode is very handy. It's when you're using imposition. Now if I use this, let's use the test mode of course. You see there's only 2 steps here. There's an imposition step used through a switchboard action, and there's a fix-up that adds information based on variables. So I can say test, we're going into test mode. It's asking me for information for the variables. So I have all this variable information I can fill in. You can see the head penguin here. I'll say OK. And you can see in the next step, the information is added and you can see head penguin is over here with the contact info. So using this for imposition is really handy because you can immediately see if everything works as expected. And of course, if I want to run that imposition on something else, like the test mode file I had earlier, I have, of course, the variable again. And then you can see the test mode file is added to the imposition scheme. We have separate videos on how to make these imposition schemes available on YouTube as well. So if you want to have a look at that, you can go ahead like after this webinar and have a look at those videos to learn how to do this. So that's how test mode works. You can check if your checks work, if your fixups do exactly what you expect, if your profiles and process plans do everything you want them to do. In checks, it is mostly useful to find out if your check actually hits what you want it to hit. I had the example for device RGB and ICC based RGB, but for example, this could also be spot colors, fonts, anything that you might not be sure your check is actually hitting. You can make sure through test mode without having to close your check editor. In Fixups, I used crop marks. I chose this because it's nice and visible whether it works or not. But you can, of course, use this to test if your fixups actually accomplish what you want them to accomplish without having to create a lot of test files. And in process plans, it's to show you visibly in steps if your steps are doing what you want them to, if everything works at the end. You can log your process plan execution to be able to see the files created along the way and to see if every step works. And then, of course, you see the final result and you can easily test it on multiple test files to see if it's working. Instead of having to open all those files, you can simply select them here. These are just all the files I used recently, so all my test files are here. And I can check if my process plan works for all those files basically simultaneously.